This is important. So now we talk about frames. Frames. You hear it all the time. Not everybody understands what a frame actually is. You know, you hear a lot of it. You have the Frameworks Institute. It does a lot of work here in the state. They don't understand what a frame is. They don't, and it's critically important. Framing is thinking. Remember I said you think with your brain, you have no choice? Therefore, every time you think, you frame. You have no choice. Right? Library. What comes into your head when you have library? A librarian, books, reading, maybe a meeting. Right? That's a frame. Hospital. Kitchen. Restaurant. Right? Those are all frames. They activate ideas and metaphors that are physically present in your brain. It's critically important because it happens unconsciously also. You know, if I say truck stop, you don't consciously know what your brain is going to pull up when I say truck stop. You have no conscious control over that. That's why don't think of an elephant is so important. You have no control over it. You think of an elephant. It's neural circuitry in your brain that gets developed, right? And there's neural binding to other regions of your mind that connect with thought and emotion. It's all connected. We used to think there was a part of the brain that was rational thought, part of the brain that controlled emotion, and that the two were separate. No, they're connected. They're neurally bound based on the physical experiences of your life. Which is really cool because it means you're connected with the rest of the world. You're physically connected with the rest of the world. The world is not separate from you. You are part of the world. It's kind of a cool concept. Thought is physical. Frames are neural circuits in our brains. Okay, so think of a neural circuit in your brain as a path through the woods. The ones that are used the most are the ones that are activated most often. It's your go-to circuitry because it happens so fast, right? Which means the ones that are exercised the most are the paths that are most clear. So, to use a metaphor, the conservative frame right now is I-94. The progressive frame is like rural Route 6. So which one do you think your brain's going to go to most? The conservative. You have no choice. So when we talk about framing an issue, it means that we evoke the physical circuit for that frame, progressive or conservative, in your brain. Right? So like when I said, don't think of an elephant, right? It evoked the neural circuitry for elephant and everything that cascades from it. Some of you maybe even thought of a Republican because of the Republican image of elephant, right? Some maybe thought of, that's because there's a neural binding from the concept of elephant, the frame, to Republican that's been developed in your brain. It's that simple. Kind of cool, huh? So framing is thinking. I said it before, Descartes was wrong. Thought is not rational. You cannot think without emotion. So for all the men, and when I learned this, I thought, oh, I'm in trouble. Oh, those emotional women. Right? Your conservatives say that all the time. They're just acting emotional. Guess what? You cannot think without emotion. And this was discovered back in the 90s in Italy. In Parma, Italy, they were doing experiments, neural experiments on macaque monkeys, where they had the monkeys hooked up to the neural processor with the computer, and they would check the monkey's neurological reaction to things that they did. When a monkey ate a banana, the pleasure center of the brain was activated, the computer would go tick, 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 and they would chart the data. Well, one day there was a lab assistant. This is a true story. This is documented. It was research papers been written on it. When one of the lab assistants left the lab, came back with her lunch, was eating her lunch, heard the machine go tick, 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 and looked at the monkey. None of the monkeys were doing anything. They were watching her eat. They had discovered mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are what evolved in our brains that make us all hardwired for empathy. So, watching somebody do an activity, your brain physically responds the same as you performing that activity yourself. So think about, again, how that connects you with the outside world. Right? If you watch somebody, hit their hand with a hammer, you experience the same thing physically in your brain as them experiencing that pain. The same regions of the brain fire. That's why we love watching little kids open presents. That's why we feel bad when we see a tortured animal on TV. It's physical. And we're all hardwired for empathy. And it requires emotion. If the region of your brain that is part of the processing of emotion with the neural binding, if it's damaged, you can't make any decisions for your life. They see that in stroke victims. You can't make any decision because you have no relation empathetically with what the consequence of that decision would be. Frame use is mostly unconscious. 98% is the best estimate. So 98% of what you think is unconscious. And again, it has to be. It has to be that way. Okay? Well, because rationality is linear. Your brain works in parallel. So if you're an engineer, think of that in terms of wiring. Okay? Your brain is your rational thought is a single linear line. Your brain works in hundreds of thousands of parallel circuits. So progressives, without even realizing it, we reinforce and repeat conservative messaging all the time. And that's called negation. Don't think of an elephant. Here's some examples. Scott Walker has not even